Dana. How are you?
I'm fine. Give us an update on this case. We covered this about 3 weeks ago, I believe.
We have, and unfortunately, not a whole lot has happened in terms of traction in finding Tracy. Tracy went missing out of the Florida taproom bar on the early morning hours, just about after 1:30 a.m. on May 27th, with a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Hattaway. And recently, there has really not been a lot of traction. There's been a few searches. But what I'm seeing on the Blink site and on the forum side of Scared Monkeys, and also from some family members of Tracy's, a bit of a concern about the direction that the investigation is going, and even so much as to say the fact that they've excluded some folks that, in their opinion, should be taken a much more closer look at.
Well, let's talk about that. And
Sure.
we hate to we're not in the business of speculating here, but we're in the business of reporting and investigating, if you want to use that, and we have to look at all aspects. Let's talk about that.
Sure, absolutely, and that is really what this is about, is finding Tracy Ocasio. Her family, as you can imagine, as we've seen with so many cases, is simply devastated. They want answers, and they want their daughter home, and that's our goal, regardless of the path it takes us, or frankly, whatever body of law enforcement gets us there, what have you. One of there's a couple of things going on. It's a very complex case, and sometimes it does lend itself to taking a little bit longer, and in terms of interviewing people. But the components of the case, as it relates to Tracy specifically, is on the evening of April 14th into the 15th, Tracy was at the tap room with with her girlfriend and then a gentleman, and got into an altercation with a group of folks over the pool table. And this is by her own admission from a forum that she had belonged to, where she posted the evening that she got back. She had some words with a blonde-haired woman who we believe is a woman by the name of Lori Branchick, and was with the Hutto brothers, which is Jeremiah and Paul Hutto. Mm-hmm. They go outside where they get into a bit of a more physical altercation in which Paul Hutto pushes Tracy to the ground during an argument. She jumps up. I think she says she smacked him and spit on her or something to that effect. But Paul Hutto was arrested that night. Paul Hutto is a very close friend and associate and business coworker of Jimmy Hattaway's. Now, Jimmy Hattaway was not there that evening, so he was not involved in this whatsoever. He was aware of it, but Paul Hutto was arrested. He spent the night in jail, and when I went to investigate this further, I was unable to obtain a copy of the police report, the incident report for that evening, which is very rare.
How come?
Well, I was told that it's in the hands of the state's attorney's office. I was able to confirm through Orlando PD that he was, in fact, arrested on a battery charge that was lodged by Ms. Ocasio, but that it was withholding with the state's attorney's office, and they would be making the decision as to whether or not that would be available to the public. Now, keep in mind, there is no charges filed. So I have not seen that before, and I'm giving you all the information that I had been given. But moreover, therefore, you have Mr. Hutto and his brother, and frankly, several members of his family have fairly extensive criminal records. And when I say extensive, I mean going back a long time, but also there's a long line of delineation of what I would call fairly serious felony charges up front that have been pled down in ways I haven't seen very often. An example would be Paul Hutto with a sexual battery, 2 counts charge that was pled down to a misdemeanor battery. No time served. I think Jeremiah, his brother, had similar charges and ended up serving a month. Several charges where they declined to prosecute. And what I'm hearing from relatives and some friends on the street is that Paul Hutto is what we call a confidential informant. I was able to confirm that with some when you get into these cases, Dana, not a lot of people offer that information.
I understand.
But I can tell you that I was able to verify that within those circles, that's a true statement. And the concern is that Paul Hutto has been has been leading law enforcement, or was leading law enforcement around early on in areas where he felt potentially she might be. With pending charges and, the situation with Tracy being what it was, I think there's a genuine level of frustration as to why this group of folks, their homes have not been searched. Moreover, on the 27th, we had just uncovered the Ocoee Police Department's dispatch calls and police calls about 2 or 3 days ago. The day that she was reported missing, at about 6:04 p.m., there was a 911 call from the Hutto home on Wyoming Court, which I covered exclusively on Blink on Crime, that was a hang-up, in close proximity to a shots fired with about a mile away to another close associate of the Hutto brothers, which I think is pretty compelling.
Yep.
In a case where you have a missing person, a known associate with pending charges. And I was also able to today interview somebody that I've been trying to get a hold of for quite some time. If you look at the circle of friends and associates of Jimmy Hadaway, there is an individual that is really considered a brother to Jimmy, and he shed some light on a couple of issues. The Rachel Clark incident, that Jimmy is currently in Seminole County Jail charged with battery, I think aggravated battery, and burglary, happened last August. And what he told me was rather shocking in that this gentleman, I'm going to withhold his name, he was actually handcuffed the night of this incident because they thought he was Jimmy. And when they figured out he wasn't Jimmy, Jimmy Hadaway has never been interviewed. The state's attorney's office and police never followed back up with Jimmy to interview him personally on this incident. So essentially, he's been arrested on these charges, but he's never been questioned whatsoever in almost a year.
Wow. What are the Ocoee cops saying?
They're not really saying anything. They said a lot in the beginning. They so much as he gave a voluntary DNA sample. They so much as put that out through CODIS, saying although he was not a suspect in any unsolved crime in the state of Florida, they were going to kind of field it out there and see if maybe in the future, if there was a jurisdictional issue that they would have to deal with. And I've never heard that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, right. We don't think he's guilty of anything here, but we're going to put it in the queue. So I have to say, when I look at the properties that the Huttos have, and I'm not making an allegation, I'm suggesting that in our efforts to find a missing person, we really have to, if what we're focusing on in a narrow way is not producing results, we have to widen that berth. We have to look at other areas. And I think the Hutto story, their associates, what I'm hearing on the ground is very compelling.
Well, the big story is, and I think the big part of this is, and this is me saying this, is law enforcement, if you make a mistake, come forward and say it. Put your egos aside, and if you need help, ask for it. And the goal here is to find this gal and to build a proper case and to do a proper investigation. Right.
And I am a staunch supporter of law enforcement, as you know. I've worked with them on other cases. I've worked with them in the Kaylee Anthony case.
Yes.
And to me, if you look at the multi-jurisdictional success that has occurred, and I'll temper it by saying success will end with a successful prosecution, but saying for now, I don't think there's anything like it, and I'd love to see that mirrored in a jurisdiction that's got a much smaller resource pool, if nothing else.
Yep.
I think sometimes there tends to get some ownership, and I respect that, and I think there's some value in that, but I also think the priority is preserving evidence and certainly finding Tracy, and that's where the goal needs to be.
Well said. The blog is Blake on Crime. Follow the case there. Thanks for joining us, and we'll stay in touch.